A woman wakes up in her bed. She gets up and walks to the window, looking outside. She solves a Scrabble puzzle, a 5-letter word for a tropical fish. She gets the word guppy and tells her fish not to take offense. She goes to a church where she sits and watches the altar as some pigeons fly around. The church is abandoned. She suddenly claps, causing the church to be filled with spooked birds. A man walks into the church and makes a joke about how the church is going to be turned into a Starbucks. He asks the woman to kill all the people in a room. The woman asks the man whether they deserve to die. The man says yes. The woman walks into an apparel shop where some good suits are being sold. She greets the old tailor fondly. She tells him that business seems to be going well, as the customer who just left seemed to be walking on air. The old man responds that the customer was walking on 10,000 pounds worth of shoes, but he treated him with respect and always brought him chocolates, which he loved. The old man, Tissier, asks Z whether what they said about chocolate, not being good for you, was true. Z simply laughs. She asks him if the man who hurt his fingers bothered him again. He responds no and asks her how she managed to make him stay away. She responds that she simply spoke the language that men understood. She doesn't tell the old man that this language included assaulting the man in the restroom and smashing one of his hands to a bloody pulp on a sink. She orders a suit. A man walks into a vehicle. His friend calls his name, Say. He and his friend are both speaking French. They laugh as his friend tells him how he and his wife wanted to know whether she was pregnant. They really wanted to know, so he broke into a pharmacy and got a pregnancy test, leaving some money for the pharmacy. Say says a police officer told his partner that he was involved in a break-in. Say asks him whether he wants him to report him or not. Say eventually asks what the pregnancy test result was. The man responds that his wife is pregnant. Say seems happy. His friend points out that the person they were waiting for had come out. As the suspect tries to drive out in his red luxury car, Say and his partner block him off with their own car. Say grabs the suspect and places him on the bonnet of the car. They question the suspect, who goes by the alias Coco, about how he is able to afford the luxury car and, finally, what he knows about some heroin that had been stolen. Coco pulls a gun and shoots at the officer. He manages to shoot Say's partner down, hitting him in the leg. Coco quickly gets in his car and drives off, only for Say to shoot and graze him, causing him to lose control of his car, which tumbles upside down. Say pursues him, and they both run through the streets of Paris, firing at each other. Coco takes a child as a hostage as he searches for Say among the panicking crowd. Say shoots him in the neck at close range. Coco falls into the water, dead. Z goes to a club wearing a black jacket suit with a nice dark dress that the tailor had made for her. The club is loud, and people are dancing. She moves towards what seems to be the VIP section of the club, staring at herself in a mirror, seemingly impressed. She gets checked by security at the door. She enters a room where a lady is singing, and some men are laughing. She is approached by one of her targets, a certain Serge, who asks if she was sent to take care of business. Z asks for a little privacy, stating that civilians were boring. Serge asks everyone to leave. Only members of his gang and the singer remain. The singer receives a text that Coco is dead. Z and Serge walk off to the dance floor and begin to dance. Z slowly brings out her blades from different parts of the dress. She cuts down Serge and proceeds to kill everyone in the room. During the chaos that erupts during Z's slaughter of the gang, the singer falls and hits her head, immediately losing her sight. Z approaches her with a gun, intending to kill her. The girl begins to cry that she has lost her sight and begs someone to help her. Z hesitates, then leaves the room without killing the girl. Finn meets Z in the church. He is the one who had dropped the hit order, and he asks her why she didn't kill the girl. Z claims that the girl was just a singer they had brought in, that she was just a little girl. Finn points out that she was in that room, and therefore was not a civilian. Z asks him what made the girl a pro, what had the girl done. Finn asks her if she trusts him, and Z says she does. He responds that her rule is no civilians, that it was his duty to ensure that there were none. As Finn walks away, Z asks him if the girl deserves this death. Finn says he wouldn't ask her if the girl didn't. Say is in a room where he is being questioned by his superiors about why he shot the suspect, in this case, Coco. Say is pissed off. He points out that the suspect had a gun to a child's head and that he had just shot a cop. One of the superiors says that the suspect shot the officer because he saw the officer as a threat. Say asks if he sees the superior as a threat, does that mean he would shoot him? Say eventually says that there was a frenzy in Coco's eyes, the kind that only leads to tragedy. That was why he shot him. Say leaves the room. He is then introduced to an agent of Europol named Sydney by another officer named Alves. He asks Alves what he's got. Alves tells him that Coco had been texting a girl just before Say started pursuing him. Incidentally, the girl was the only survivor in a room where the Marseille gang had been killed. Alves points out that the girl had told Coco that she wrote a song for him, and that song was what Coco was playing when Say got to him. Alves says they checked the song on Shazam but couldn't find anything, which means the music was a demo. Alves then points out that when they played the music for the club DJ, it was the same music the girl who was wounded had played on the night the gang was killed. She was believed to be linked to Coco and the heroin case. Sydney also says that all the men except one were killed with a samurai blade, except for one who was shot in the head. Say is amazed. He points out that someone walked into a club, killed 4 people with a sword, and shot another, but no one saw the sword. Sydney tells him that it's not a joke. Z goes to the hospital where the blind girl is. She pretends to be from the US Embassy, claiming to be Vice Consul No One. She tells the officer at the door that she is there to see Jennifer Clark. She successfully enters the singer's room. She manages to inject a deadly substance into the girl's fore. While doing so, she asks the girl what happened to her eyes. The girl says that the doctors are not sure, that there was so much swelling on her optic nerves from hitting her head. Z asks her if it will get better. The girl says she doesn't know, it could be temporary or permanent, depending on when the swelling goes down. Z heads to the door, but before she leaves, the girl says something that makes her pause. She asks Z to help her call her mom, saying she is sure her mom is worried about her. Z asks her if she is close with her mom. The girl says she was her problem child, but if she had a second chance, she would make it up to her. Z quickly switches off the fourth. Say walks into the room and greets Z, who introduces herself as no one from the embassy. Say says he is there to ask Jennifer some questions. Z sits down, places her bag in front of her, and brings out a gun, which she points at Jennifer. Say asks Jennifer if she saw the killer, but the girl says she didn't see anything. A nurse comes in and switches the fourth back on. Z pretends to carelessly knock down the fourth pole. Z and Say both walk out of the hospital. They discuss how their days usually go, both claiming their lines of work to be dull, despite the fact that Say typically throws his suspects through glass, and Z strangles some of her targets with her scarf. As Z walks off, Say receives a call from the embassy saying they don't know of any consul by the name of No One. Say tries to run after Z, but she has simply vanished. He looks at the name she gave him and realizes it divides into 2, No One. Say says, not bad. Say goes to question a prince from Arabia who had been robbed immediately after he landed in Paris. Say asks him what had been stolen from the plane, but the prince refuses to answer. He shows him pictures of the gang members who had committed the robbery and whom Z had killed, and asks if he knew any of them. The prince claims not to know any of them, despite seeing the picture of one of the men who had pointed a gun at him during the robbery. Say tells him that all those men had been killed the previous night, and asks if their deaths bothered him. The prince says their deaths do not bother him but rather that they pleased him. Say also shows him a picture of the Paris crime lord and godfather, Jules Gobert. The prince claims not to know him either. Say points out that the man was involved in gambling, prostitution, and heroin. The prince stands to leave, claiming to have an important meeting. Say asks him again what had been stolen from him, but the prince still refuses to answer. Z goes to meet Finn on his boat. She asks Finn about the 2 girls she sees on the boat. Finn responds, tells her their names, and calls both of them her fans. Finn asks her why the girl from the club was still alive. Z says there was a cop, and all she could do was bluff her way out of the room. Finn asks her why she didn't go back after the cop left. She responds that she didn't stick around and adds that the girl didn't know anything. Z says she was there when the cop questioned her, and the girl was out of it. Z says the girl was a civilian and that she couldn't even ID the killer. Finn responds that the girl was lying and that Z was slipping. Z says the point was that the girl wasn't talking. She notices some guys near a jeep, both in black suits. She asks Finn who they were. Finn doesn't answer but instead tells the new girls about the first time he met Z. She had killed the guy who had beaten her badly, shot him straight in the face, one of the toughest pimps in the business. Finn said she had been like a lion. He asks her what happened to that lion. Finn says it's fine if she couldn't kill the blind girl, that he couldn't force her. Z noticed that the men in suits had driven off. She tells Finn that the men were going to kill the blind girl, weren't they? Then she rushes off. She steals a bike, catches up with the men, and makes them crash into a van. She rushes to the hospital, knocks out the cop at Jennifer's door, and tells Jennifer that some men were coming to kill her and that she had to trust her if she wanted to survive. Say is in the hospital room of his partner, who had been shot in the leg. He tells him how far he had gone with the investigation and how he believes the prince knows about the heroin. He also tells him that the singer had been lying in the statement she gave him, but he planned to press her for the truth. They both suddenly hear gunshots. The assassins enter the hospital and begin to shoot at both security officers and civilians indiscriminately. Sei rushes out of the room and engages them in a gun battle. Z is also engaged in the gun battle. She runs off with Jenny. Sei catches up with them in a room. They both meet for the second time, and the assassins move in from different parts of the room. They both fire at the assassins coming from each other's backs, protecting each other. Sei asks if he sees the superior as a threat. Does that mean he would shoot him? Sei eventually says that there was a frenzy in Coco's eyes, the kind that only leads to tragedy. That was why he shot him. After they have gunned down the assassins, they then resume pointing their guns at each other. Z tells him his gun is empty and that she always saves one bullet. She knocks him out with her gun. He falls. She wheels Jennifer towards the door, only to stop and go back to Sei. She asks him if he is awake, turns out he is. She apologizes and knocks him out again. She takes Jennifer back to her home. Jennifer finds out that Z was the one who had killed all the men in the club, and Z says she was the one that made her blind. Jennifer says she doesn't blame her, she instead blames herself for her bad choices. Z asks Jennifer what she knows about the stolen heroin. She threatens to leave her on the streets if she doesn't talk. Jennifer confesses that she and Coco had stolen the heroin and put it in a warehouse, but she doesn't know its exact location. Sei eventually arrests Z as she goes to her favorite restaurant. During her interrogation, which seems quite pleasant for an interrogation, they both solve a puzzle together. It turns out Z was known as the Queen of Death, and she had also saved his life before. Z escapes, only to discover that Jennifer had been kidnapped. Finn tells her to kill Sei at a marked location if she wants Jennifer to survive. She agrees. Finn, meanwhile, sends one of the girls to kill her as soon as she carries out the hit. Z's tailor had been harassed by a police officer who wanted the old man to call him as soon as he saw Z. It turns out that officer was Sei's partner and friend, and he had set Sei up. She tells him to give Sei the phone, and as soon as he does so, she shoots him. The other assassin Finn had sent shoots at a dummy Z had placed. Z kills her. She tells Sei that his friend was a corrupt officer. They both get the location of the heroin from Sei's partner. They get the heroin and use it to bargain with Finn for Jennifer. Z and Sei engage Finn and his henchmen in a gun battle at the old, run-down church. Z eventually kills Finn, telling him, "You deserve this death." Jennifer regains her sight. Z calls Sei after seeing Jennifer reunite with her mother. She tells him she will send him a postcard. Sei and Z solve the last word on her paper Scrabble. The word happens to be reborn. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications, so you can watch more movies like this. Thanks for watching.